recording?
Oh, I'm just like it's recording now. It's built in the Skype actually.
Oh,
If you look,
it's telling me now.
yeah, at the bottom right corner, there's three dots, and if you open it up, it's got a recording option. Anyway, so yeah, I'm with Justin now, and thank you for joining me for this interview. So you're American, you're an American in China, right?
Yeah, correct. Glad to be here.
And okay, cool. And can you maybe just take a moment, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, maybe where you're from in America, maybe what you studied, anything you'd like to share, just to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. 35 years old. I studied business management. I was considered a non-traditional student. I started at the age of 25, went for the Pell Grant, and graduated around 2012. My background, I guess you could say, uh, in my younger days, I was an aspiring golf professional, competed at a local level. Didn't really win any money in tournaments, but won some money in the local dog fights and local tournaments, local club championships and stuff like that. But then I started teaching golf to children. We were kind of like a on-site company that went to various schools and just used training tools. And taught children around elementary and sometimes middle school. And I thought that was a unique experience.
Okay.
I also have some junior clinic training as well with the past clubs that I've worked for. So I definitely think that teaching has always been a um, a valuable thing that I've done. I've really enjoyed it. So I would say that that's the bulk of what I've done in my past. And then as I got my undergrad, I worked for a small financial company and worked for the operations department where I just approved documents and just validated their account information. And then after that, my ex-wife's company transferred her to the Philippines, lived there for 2 years. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to work due to visa situation. And then after that, they flew us to Ireland, lived there for a very short time, and then decided I need to move on to bigger and better things. And that's when I decided to become an English teacher. Went through the 120-hour TEFL certification and looked online. And even though I visited about 15 countries, I needed something a little bit different, something that a place where I haven't been before, and China felt like that was the best fit. And I have never really heard of Balto, Inner Mongolia, which is where I'm currently residing, and I felt like that was a place where I can learn something where it's not to the traditional Han Chinese culture. It does have a mix of the Mongolian culture as well. So I do feel like I'm learning something day by day.
So, okay, I want to clarify for the audience because people who might listen to this probably know very little about the geography of China. And if they hear Inner Mongolia, I know what you're talking about, but they might think of that as Mongolia, the country. Do you want to explain the difference between Mongolia and Inner Mongolia?
Right, correct. So we have there is the autonomous, the sovereign country, Mongolia, but they also kind of consider Inner Mongolia as autonomous as well, autonomous from the country itself. I guess that's when the Chinese fought off Genghis Khan around the 13th, 15th century. I'm not too familiar with the history behind it, but they are under Chinese governance. And from my understanding, they have a lot of Han population, but there are strands of the Mongolians as well. It's kind of I shouldn't say it's rare to find pure Mongolians here, but it does happen where you can definitely distinguish a pure Mongolian from someone who's we would call them an import from where I'm from. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I forgot to mention that. Uh, And that's
Okay.
also kind of an import city as well, where a lot of people from the north are moving down to the southern states. And I guess you could kind of say that's the opposite, the adverse effect, where people are moving up into this northern territory. I think Baltol is it's quite close to the Mongolian border, and it's an industrial city as well.
Okay. And so would you say I haven't been to Inner Mongolia yet. I want to go, but yeah, I have this impression that even though it's part of mainland China, it's part of the mainland, I still think of it as being a little bit distinctive from maybe like most of the other provinces. I mean, they might all claim they're distinctive, and in some ways they are. But I think of like, sort of Hunan and Hubei and Anhui as being like a very Han and similar. Whereas when I think of Inner Mongolia, I think of it, yeah, kind of being a little bit distinct, like a little bit different from the other provinces.
You're right. So there is an extra layer that is applied when it comes to the governing bodies. So a lot of the situations, I guess I would use one as an example where I've heard of teachers that have gotten deported simply because they're not working at their registered locations on their visa. Here, it's not quite the same where uh, it's almost like they don't really pay too much attention to it. And if so, there can be some negotiation. I guess maybe 10, 15 years ago, you could just make your future uh, known just by a bottle of Baijiu and a pack of cigarettes. But now it is becoming a little bit more restrictive, but there still is an extra layer where whatever happens in Beijing and below, um, I shouldn't say it doesn't apply, but if the local government want to kind of push back, I do feel like they have that right a little bit because within this whole agreement of China taking over Inner Mongolia, they agreed to preserve their cultural identity and stuff like that. So I think there is a bit of leverage that they do have.
It's interesting. So you touched on this a little bit, but I want to clarify a few things. When was the first time you went to China? What year? 2012, 2015? What year did you first arrive?
Right. So this is the beginning of my third year. I came here in 2018, I guess, March of 2018, and it
Okay.
was a unique experience for sure. And I've only lived here. I haven't lived in other cities or anything like that. So uh, I don't have any frame of reference as to a authentic Han style city.
Okay, but so you're currently in your third year in mainland China.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So now let me ask you, what were maybe some of the first things that surprised you about just day-to-day Chinese life, Chinese culture, education, schools, anything? When you first arrived, maybe your first week, your first month, your first year, what are some things that some maybe culture shock you had or some things you noticed that really stood out to you, good or bad or both?
Yeah, there was definitely both. I guess I will start with the more challenging aspects, and that is obviously the lack of bilingual environment with them using Chinese characters. I did not realize how difficult it would be. Before I came here, I didn't really study too much. I just figured I could jump into it because I've visited so many other countries, and I thought, oh, I'm international traveler for many years. I can do this. It's no big deal. But even some of the most simplest tasks require uh, require a basic knowledge of the language. So that was my biggest challenge. And I'm a fairly open and easygoing guy. I don't get strung up on too many ideas uh, that are fresh in some ways if it's negative. So uh, it really wasn't that bad of an adjustment for me. I also learned about how much a social life does mean to me personally, but how it could mean to any other person. Um, so I moved here not to have a social life, but to really improve on my career. And uh, I would say about 6 months down the road, I thought, Justin, what are you doing? You're spending your life here doing, just doing the same thing every day, not having any kind of outside enjoyment. So I learned how important that is, and I guess that really proved that I am a uh, extreme. What's the word I'm looking for? Not introvert, extrovert. I'm an extrovert type person. Even though I've built some introvert style qualities, overall I definitely respond to my surroundings. And I would say that the good thing is I don't see too many foreigners here. And I'm the type of person that just wants to embrace local culture, local individuals, just the way of life itself. I feel like if I spend my time around foreigners or a large group of foreigners, it kind of diminishes my point of being here. So I try to just be a loner in some ways. So in that way, in that respect, it was good. I could actually breathe and for a second and be within my own thoughts instead of always having to. I don't want to say please or anything like that, but entertain, and that's another part of culture here is they do love to entertain people, uh, and I've been on the receiving end of that a lot of times. So I do appreciate the warming, uh, welcoming, lack for a better word, of how locals treated me here. Yes, sure, I stand out quite a lot, but I get two responses, and that is they are very open and very excited. They try to speak, but they can't. Or the other reaction is that they just give me that ghost stare, like I'm not really their kind. So uh, I'm sure they know why I'm here, but I can't say that it's the kind of welcome like, hey, yeah, you can come, stay, enjoy yourself. And I've been told this before where they say, Justin, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, but you can only be here for a short time. You cannot be here forever. After a certain time, you must go. I thought, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
I think I will make that decision.
Imagine if we said that to foreigners or immigrants in America.
Yeah, that we would be the bad guy.
Yeah, we'd be the bad guy. But in China, it's pretty normal. Or I'm sure you've encountered this. You walk around, you mentioned getting stared at. Do you have a lot of people saying Lawai, Lawai, and shouting hello at you? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, this does happen, and even to this day, my own community also they call me Lao Wai. But yeah, a lot of people they will shout and say hello, especially when I go to other parts, other districts. Those are the ones that maybe they're like, oh, I've never seen him before. Hello, hello. But other than that, yeah, they always call me Lao Wai. And I do understand the positives and the negatives behind it. I don't particularly take any kind of criticism or offense to it. I just take it on the chin like everything else.
Yeah, I don't think it's intended to be negative. I just find again, this is maybe you feel differently, but I feel like in China they have very much this us and them mindset in that there's us Chinese people and then there's everybody else and everybody else is a foreigner, everybody else is a Laowai. Whereas I feel like that's so different from America. I think we really make distinctions for better or worse, and it's like, well, I'm from the East Coast, I'm from the West Coast, I'm an African American, I'm an Asian American, I'm homosexual. We seem to really put a lot more, create more groups and categories Whereas I feel like in China, a lot of people just there's Chinese people and there's foreigners. And would you do you
Yeah, you're exactly
think of it
right.
that way?
You're exactly right. Now, I do know that there are lots of minorities here, but that's not really spoken about. So it's almost like I don't want to say that they're worthless or anything like that, but they just don't have any kind of power behind their identity. Versus in the U.S., we really do include everyone. We are an inclusive culture. Um, and I've noticed, I've seen this distinction quite contrastly, like where yes, you're right. Here, it's either you're Chinese or you're not. And if you're not, well, they have a certain predisposition. I'm not sure if that's the right word to use about you. They have a certain idea of what your expectations are supposed to be. Not about what your expectations are. They kind of have their own set of expectations for you before maybe you're expendable or whatever. Versus our culture, we really try to include everyone and really try to build a home and uh, make a future that is available for anyone, any race, any nationality. And this is one thing that that I talked about with one of the parents. They invited me out to dinner and they said, "Oh, what are the good and bad things about living in China, about living in your country?" And these are just one of the things that I spoke about was the differences of viewpoints and perceptions.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let me see. Let me stop right here for the first part, and then we'll continue for the second part. Let me stop it here so I don't lose this.